There's something striking about the solitary figure who walks alone. The man who chooses the path of isolation is not a man in despair, but one who has embraced the freedom that comes from being untethered. To walk alone is to live with the recognition that the world does not impose its definitions of success or meaning upon you. You are free to discover your own rhythms, your own truth. In a world obsessed with connection, with belonging, and with being seen, walking alone is often mistaken for loneliness. But it is not loneliness at all. It is the experience of stripping away the noise, the distractions, the constant chatter of expectations. It is the silence of being with yourself, not the absence of others. In that silence there's room for clarity, for insight. The man who walks alone is not running from the world, he is embracing it on his own terms, fully aware of his existence within it. To walk alone is to realize that you are the center of your own universe. You don't need the approval of others to feel valid or real. The judgment of others fades, and you see yourself as you truly are without the lens of comparison, without the pressure to fit into molds that others have created. You are free to wander, to lose yourself in the moment, in the experience, without concern for the destination. It is in the wandering that you discover the most about who you are. There's a unique beauty in this solitude, for it is not an escape but an invitation. An invitation to explore not only the world around you, but the landscape of your own mind. Alone you hear your thoughts more clearly, and you begin to understand their nature. The fears, the desires, the regrets, they begin to dissolve into the background as you engage with life directly. You are present. You are whole. The man who walks alone has seen something others might overlook. He's tasted the sweetness of being fully present, without the need for anything external to validate him. He's discovered that to be truly free is not to be without others, but to be fully in tune with yourself, knowing that your worth is not dependent on what the world gives you or expects of you. In the quiet of his steps, the man who walks alone is always moving towards something greater, a deeper understanding of his own nature, and perhaps the secret to all things. It is not a secret to be spoken aloud, but one that reveals itself to those who dare to embrace the solitude and seek not escape, but integration. It is a way of being that is not separate from the world, but rather in profound harmony with it. To walk alone is to step into the flow of life itself, unencumbered by external expectations, carrying the knowledge that you are the only one who can truly know what it means to walk in your own shoes. To walk alone is to move through the world with a heightened awareness of both its vastness and its intimacy. The space around you, once crowded with the opinions and judgments of others, becomes a reflection of the very essence of existence itself. When you are alone, the world no longer feels like something outside of you, something to be conquered or understood through the lens of others' experiences. Instead, it is a living, breathing extension of yourself, a universe of possibilities and revelations. This solitude is not a retreat, but a return to the most basic and profound relationship, the one you have with yourself. In the company of others, we often lose touch with this essential relationship. We mold ourselves to fit into the expectations of family, society, friends. We wear masks to meet these demands, and over time, the line between who we are and who we think we should be blurs. We begin to believe that our value is dependent on external validation. But when we walk alone, these masks fall away. There's no one to impress, no one to please, no one to answer to but ourselves. And so, in walking alone, we learn to let go. We let go of the notion that we must be something other than what we are. We let go of the idea that there is something missing in our lives. The world teaches us to seek success, seek recognition, seek happiness outside of ourselves. But when we walk alone, we find that all of that seeking is, in some ways, a distraction. The journey to discover who we are is not one of accumulation, but of shedding. We don't need to acquire anything, we simply need to stop pretending that we are anything other than who we are in this very moment. As we walk, we feel the ground beneath us. We begin to understand the rhythms of the earth. We see how the path, though it may twist and turn, is always moving forward. The act of walking is a simple yet profound metaphor for life. We do not control the ground we walk on, nor the direction we go, but we can choose how we engage with it. And in that engagement we find a kind of peace. the peace that comes not from control, but from surrender. To walk alone is to surrender to the moment, to the unfolding of life without the need to dictate what comes next. There is a quiet wisdom in walking alone. It's not the kind of wisdom that comes from books or from the words of others. It's a wisdom that rises from the deep well of your own experience. It is the knowledge that emerges when you stop running from yourself, when you stop seeking approval and start listening to your inner voice. In that stillness, you begin to hear your own thoughts without the interference of the world. And in hearing those thoughts, you begin to understand their nature, their fleeting and ephemeral quality. You begin to see that most of what we think we know is just noise, a distraction from the deeper currents of existence that flow within us. This is not to say that walking alone is always comfortable. Solitude can be a challenging companion, especially when we are so accustomed to the noise and chaos of the world. At first it may feel like a void, a space of emptiness. But over time, this emptiness reveals its true nature. It is not a void to be filled, but a space of pure potential, a space where you are free to become. In this space there is no past or future, only the present moment. You are not defined by what you have done or what you hope to achieve. You are simply here now in this moment walking. And as you walk, you may encounter fears of isolation, of being forgotten, of being unimportant. These fears arise from the ego, the part of us that seeks validation and external recognition. But as you continue walking, you realize that these fears are not who you are. They are temporary thoughts, just like all other thoughts. They come and go, but they do not define you. In fact, they are the very thoughts that keep you from truly experiencing life, from truly engaging with the world as it is, without the filters of judgment and expectation. To walk alone is to confront these fears head-on, to see them for what they are, illusions, and to step beyond them. It is in walking alone that we come to understand the nature of connection. We live in a world that often emphasizes connection with others, connection through social media, through groups, through relationships. But the deepest connection we can have is with ourselves. When we are connected to ourselves, we are connected to everything. We see the interconnectedness of all things. The man who walks alone is not separate from the world, he is a part of it, deeply woven into its fabric. He knows that the same energy that flows through him flows through everything else, the trees, the animals, the sky, the earth. To walk alone is to recognize that you are never truly alone, because you are always a part of this greater whole. The man who walks alone does not need to seek companionship to feel complete, because he has found that completeness within himself. His solitude is not a statement of rejection of the world, but an acceptance of himself. He walks alone not because he is running from others, but because he is fully present in the world as it is, without the need for anything extra. And in this presence he discovers a deep and abiding peace. It is often said that we are all searching for something: happiness, love, success. But the man who walks alone knows that these things are not external acquisitions. They are not things to be obtained or chased. They are states of being, states of awareness. Happiness arises when we stop trying to control it, when we stop trying to force it into being. It is a natural byproduct of living in alignment with who we are. Love is not something to be sought outside of ourselves. It is something we already have, something that flows through us when we are open and present. Success is not measured by what we accomplish, but by the degree to which we embrace life as it is, without striving to make it something else. And so the man who walks alone does not walk with the intention of reaching any particular destination. He walks for the sake of walking, for the sake of being present. His journey is not one of achievement or conquest. It is one of exploration, of discovery. Each step is a chance to become more attuned to the world, to the self, to the moment. He is not in a rush to get anywhere, for he knows that the journey itself is the destination. In walking alone, we come to understand the importance of silence. Silence is not an absence of sound, it is the space in which all things arise. It is in silence that we hear the whispers of the heart, the subtle nudges of intuition. It is in silence that we become aware of the subtle patterns and rhythms of life. The world is always speaking to us, but we can only hear it when we are still enough to listen. When we walk alone, we create space for this silence. We allow ourselves to be fully present in the moment, free from the distractions that usually keep us from hearing the deeper truths of existence. In the solitude of walking alone, we find that the world is not something to be controlled or understood, but something to be experienced. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. The man who walks alone knows that he cannot control the world, nor should he. He knows that the greatest freedom comes not from trying to manipulate circumstances, but from embracing them as they are. He walks with the understanding that life, in all its beauty and imperfection, is exactly as it should be. The man who walks alone is not afraid of the unknown. He embraces it. He knows that the unknown is where all possibility lies. The moment you think you have it all figured out is the moment life begins to close off. But when you walk alone, you remain open, receptive to whatever comes your way. You walk without expectations, without the need for anything specific to happen. And in this openness, you find that life has a way of revealing itself in ways that are far more wondrous than anything you could have planned or imagined. To walk alone is to live with a deep trust in the unfolding of life. It is to understand that the path is not always clear, and the road is not always smooth. But it is to trust that, even in the midst of uncertainty, there is a wisdom at play, a guiding force that is always leading you exactly where you need to go. The man who walks alone knows that the destination is never truly the point. The point is in the journey itself, in the act of walking, in the engagement with life as it is. And so, to walk alone is to live fully. It is to embrace each moment, each step, each breath as a sacred part of the whole. It is to walk in the knowing that no matter where you go, you are always home. As the man walks alone, he becomes more attuned to the simplicity of existence. In a world that thrives on complexity and noise, his solitude is a reminder that life need not be overwhelming. There is a rhythm to everything, a natural ebb and flow, if we only take the time to listen. The man who walks alone knows that the world is full of mysteries, but it is not necessary to solve them all. Some questions remain unanswered, some things remain hidden, and in that mystery there is a profound beauty. The man who walks alone embraces the unknown, because he understands that the unknown is not a threat, but an invitation, a call to adventure, a space where the limits of the known world dissolve, and everything becomes possible. In his solitude, he often encounters the vastness of his own mind. Thoughts arise swirling around like leaves in the wind, seemingly random, yet all a part of the same flow. In the quiet of his walk, there is no hurry to make sense of it all. He does not rush to label the thoughts, to dissect them or give them meaning. Instead, he watches them as they come and go, understanding that they are not who he is. They are like clouds in the sky, ever changing, ever moving, and ultimately impermanent. There is a freedom in this observation. To see the thoughts without attachment is to liberate oneself from the tyranny of the mind. The man who walks alone understands that he does not need to be controlled by his thoughts. They are simply a part of the landscape of his mind, but they do not define him. He is more than the sum of his thoughts, more than the fleeting emotions that arise. And so as he walks, he moves through the world with a calm, steady presence, no longer caught in the whirlpool of inner turmoil that so often plagues the unexamined life. When walking alone, the man begins to see the interconnectedness of all things. He sees the way the trees stretch their branches toward the sky, reaching for the same light that illuminates his path. He notices the way the wind whispers through the leaves, creating a symphony of sound, each note harmonizing with the next. The world reveals itself as an intricate web, where every element plays its part in the unfolding of the whole. The man who walks alone knows that he is not separate from this web, not apart from the natural world. He is a thread in it, woven together with every living thing. And in this awareness there is a deep sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the simple things, the warmth of the sun on his skin, the sound of birds singing in the trees, the cool breeze that moves across his face. In the rush of everyday life, these small blessings are often overlooked, dismissed as inconsequential. But for the man who walks alone, these moments are rich with meaning. They are reminders of the miracle of existence, of the beauty that surrounds him in every moment. The world is not something to be taken for granted, but something to be cherished. Every step he takes is an act of reverence, a silent prayer of thanks for the gift of life. As he walks, the man finds himself naturally letting go of the need to control or to manipulate the world around him. There is no need to shape reality into something more palatable, no need to impose his will on the course of events. He understands that life is a river that flows on its own, and while he can navigate it, he cannot dictate its course. To walk alone is to surrender to the flow of life, to trust in its wisdom, and to allow it to carry him where it will. The man who walks alone is not a passive observer of life, but an active participant, engaged fully in each moment as it comes, without resistance or expectation. The world is constantly changing. The man who walks alone understands that nothing is permanent. The trees will shed their leaves, the seasons will shift, and the world will continue to evolve. But in the face of change, there is peace. The man who walks alone is not afraid of change, for he knows that it is an inherent part of life. He has learned to flow with it, to embrace it, and to adapt to its rhythms. In the same way that the river carves its way through the landscape, he too carves his path through life, not by force, but by surrendering to its natural flow. In this surrender there is freedom. Freedom from the constant need to strive, to achieve, to prove oneself. The man who walks alone does not measure his worth by external standards. He does not need validation from the world or from others. His worth is inherent in the fact that he exists, in the fact that he is alive and breathing. The world does not define him, he defines himself. And in this there is an immense power, a power that comes from being fully grounded in one's own being, from knowing that nothing outside of oneself can take away what is already true and essential. As he walks, the man experiences the passing of time in a way that is different from most people. Time no longer feels like something to be conquered or controlled. There is no anxiety about running out of time, no pressure to make every moment count. Instead, time becomes something to be savored, something to be experienced fully, moment by moment. Each step is its own world, its own complete experience. And there is no rush to get to the next moment, for this moment is enough. In this way, the man who walks alone becomes timeless. He lives in the present, free from the burdens of the past and the anxieties of the future. In his solitude, the man often encounters moments of deep insight, moments when the veil between himself and the world lifts, and he sees things as they truly are. These moments are not forced or manufactured. They arise naturally, like the first rays of sunlight breaking through the darkness. They are moments of clarity when everything falls into place, and the mysteries of life are briefly revealed. The man who walks alone learns to embrace these moments of insight, to accept them without grasping or clinging. He understands that they are not permanent, but fleeting, like the changing tides of the ocean. And yet, in their impermanence, they are all the more precious. These moments of insight are not intellectual revelations, but direct experiences of reality. The man who walks alone learns to see the world not through the lens of thought, but through the lens of direct perception. He becomes aware of the subtle energies that permeate everything, the way the light dances on the water, the way the wind moves through the grass, the way his own breath flows in and out. These are the things that cannot be explained by words or concepts. They are the things that can only be known through direct experience. And in these experiences, the man who walks alone discovers a deeper truth, one that transcends language and thought, one that is rooted in the very fabric of existence. As he walks, the man is also aware of the impermanence of all things. He sees how everything in the world is in a constant state of flux. Nothing stays the same for long. The tree that once stood tall may one day fall, the river that flows through the land may shift its course. The people he meets along his journey will come and go, just as he himself will eventually pass through the world and leave it behind. And yet there is a sense of peace in this awareness. For the man who walks alone, the impermanence of life is not something to fear, but something to embrace. He understands that change is not a loss, but a natural part of the cycle of life. Everything is born, everything grows, everything decays, and everything is reborn. This is the rhythm of life, the great dance that we all partake in, whether we are aware of it or not. The man who walks alone is free to witness this dance with a clear mind and an open heart. He does not resist the flow of life, nor does he try to control it. He knows that the more he resists, the more he suffers. Instead, he moves with the flow, accepting each moment as it comes, understanding that each moment is a gift. The world is always changing, and he too is always changing. But in that change, he finds a deeper connection to the world, a connection that transcends the surface level of things and goes straight to the heart of reality. This is the beauty of walking alone. It is not the absence of others that makes it so powerful, but the presence of the self. To walk alone is to be fully present with oneself, fully engaged with the world as it is. It is an act of courage, an act of trust. For in walking alone, the man learns to trust the world and himself, knowing that everything that happens is part of the great unfolding of life. He no longer feels the need to seek approval or validation from others. He no longer feels the need to measure his worth by external standards. He knows that his worth is intrinsic, that he is enough just as he is. And in this knowing there is peace. The man who walks alone is at peace with himself, at peace with the world, at peace with the flow of life. He has learned to surrender to the moment, to accept what is, and to trust in the process of living. And in this peace he discovers a deep and abiding joy, a joy that comes not from external circumstances, but from the simple act of being alive. The man who walks alone is a man who knows that life, in all its imperfection and beauty, is enough. It is a journey worth taking, every step of the way. As the man walks, he experiences a profound sense of liberation. With each step, he sheds the weight of societal expectations, the relentless drive to conform, and the subtle pressures of fitting into predefined roles. The world has taught him to be someone, to live up to certain standards, to climb certain ladders. But in walking alone, he comes to understand that these standards are arbitrary, that these ladders lead to nowhere of true substance. The man who walks alone knows that there is no race to be won, no destination to be reached. His journey is one of self-discovery, not achievement. He walks for the sheer joy of walking, for the feeling of his feet touching the earth, for the simple act of moving through the world with no purpose other than to experience it fully. This freedom from expectation is a powerful thing. It allows the man to let go of the burdens that so often weigh heavily on the hearts of those who are constantly striving. Striving for approval, striving for success, striving for recognition, it's a never-ending cycle that leads only to exhaustion. But in walking alone, the man learns that true contentment comes not from striving, but from being. Being present, being true to himself, being open to life as it unfolds. When the weight of external expectations is lifted, the man can finally breathe. He can finally relax into the moment, into the flow of life. The journey itself becomes the reward, and in this reward he discovers a peace that eludes those who are forever chasing something beyond themselves. But there is also a deep sense of responsibility that comes with walking alone. It's a responsibility not to the world, not to others, but to oneself. The man who walks alone must take full ownership of his life, of his choices, of his path. There is no one else to blame for the direction his life takes. There are no excuses, no one to point fingers at when things go wrong. Walking alone means facing the truth of one's own decisions, the consequences of one's own actions. It means taking full responsibility for how one moves through the world and how one interacts with it. This responsibility is not a burden, but a freedom. It is the freedom to shape one's own life, to create meaning where none exists, to define the terms of one's own existence. In this responsibility, the man who walks alone discovers a sense of empowerment. The world may try to dictate his worth, to define who he should be, but he knows that he is the only one who can truly define himself. He is the author of his own story, and with each step he writes a new chapter. There is a sense of mastery in this, not in the sense of controlling others or dominating the world, but in the sense of knowing oneself, of understanding one's own desires, values, and purpose. The man who walks alone does not need validation from outside sources because he is fully aware of his own worth. He knows that he is enough, that he has everything he needs within himself. The journey of walking alone is also one of acceptance. As the man walks, he learns to accept the world around him as it is. He no longer tries to change it, to make it fit into his idealized vision. He understands that the world is not something to be controlled, but something to be experienced. The beauty of the world lies in its imperfection, in its unpredictability. The man who walks alone does not resist the world as it is, he accepts it. He accepts the fleeting nature of beauty, the inevitability of loss, the uncertainty of life. And in this acceptance he finds peace. He no longer feels the need to fight against the current of life, to push against what is. Instead he flows with it, moving through the world with grace and ease, trusting that wherever the journey takes him, it is exactly where he needs to be. In this acceptance, there is a deep sense of gratitude. The man who walks alone is grateful for the opportunity to experience life in its raw, unfiltered form. He is grateful for the people he meets along the way, for the moments of connection that arise, even if they are brief. He is grateful for the challenges that shape him, for the lessons that life offers in the form of difficulties and obstacles. He understands that life is not something that happens to him, but something that he is an active participant in. The man who walks alone is aware of the interconnectedness of all things, of the way his life is intertwined with the lives of others, and with the world itself. He knows that he is not an isolated being, but a part of the larger web of existence, and in this awareness he finds a deep sense of peace. The man who walks alone also learns the importance of patience. He understands that everything in life unfolds in its own time. There is no need to rush, no need to force things to happen. Life has its own rhythm, its own pace, and when we try to force things to move faster than they are meant to, we create friction, we create stress. But when we allow life to unfold naturally, we discover that everything happens as it should. There is a natural progression to all things, and when we trust in this, we find that we can move through life with ease, without resistance. The man who walks alone does not hurry. He walks at his own pace, allowing the journey to reveal itself in its own time. This patience extends not only to the world around him, but also to himself. The man who walks alone knows that personal growth is a process, a slow and steady unfolding. He does not expect instant results or immediate change. He understands that change takes time, and that true transformation comes from consistent, gradual effort. The man who walks alone is patient with himself. He does not judge himself for where he is on his journey. He accepts himself fully, knowing that he is always exactly where he needs to be. He knows that the path to self-discovery is not linear, but a winding, sometimes unpredictable road, and he embraces the journey, even when it is difficult or uncertain. The man who walks alone also understands the importance of being present. In a world that is constantly pulling us in different directions, it is easy to become disconnected from the present moment. But the man who walks alone knows that the present is all there is. The past is gone, the future is uncertain, and all we truly have is the here and now. When he walks fully present to each step, each breath, each sensation. He is not lost in thought, not distracted by worries or regrets. He is fully engaged with the world around him, noticing the small details that most people miss: the way the light falls on a tree, the sound of a distant bird, the texture of the ground beneath his feet. The man who walks alone knows that these moments are precious, that they hold the essence of life itself. He does not take them for granted. He savors them, cherishes them, knowing that they are fleeting. This presence also allows the man who walks alone to experience deep moments of insight. In the silence of his walk, in the stillness of his mind, he begins to see things clearly. He understands the nature of his own thoughts, the fleeting nature of his emotions, the impermanence of his desires. He learns to see life as it is, without the distortions of fear, judgment, or attachment. In this clarity, he finds a deeper understanding of himself and the world around him. The man who walks alone is not afraid of what he finds in the silence. He knows that it is in the silence that the answers lie, not in the noise of the world. The man who walks alone also learns the importance of self-reliance. In solitude, he becomes his own source of strength. He knows that he cannot rely on others to give him meaning, to provide him with happiness, or to fill the emptiness he may feel. He must find these things within himself. The man who walks alone learns to trust his own instincts, to rely on his own intuition, to follow his own inner compass. He knows that he has everything he needs within him to navigate the world. He is not dependent on anyone or anything outside of himself for his sense of purpose or fulfillment. And in this self-reliance, he finds a deep sense of empowerment. He is the creator of his own life, the master of his own destiny. As the man walks, he also comes to understand the importance of embracing uncertainty. Life is full of unknowns, and the man who walks alone knows that he cannot control everything. He does not know what the future holds, and he does not try to predict it. Instead, he walks with a sense of openness, of curiosity, allowing life to unfold as it will. He embraces the mystery, knowing that it is in the unknown that the most profound experiences arise. The man who walks alone is not afraid of uncertainty. He knows that it is an essential part of life, a part of the adventure. Without it, life would be dull, predictable, and lacking in wonder. The unknown is where possibility lives, and the man who walks alone is ready to meet it head-on. Through all of this, the man who walks alone discovers that the journey itself is the destination. It is not about reaching a particular goal, achieving a certain success, or becoming someone else. It is about being present with each step, with each breath, and with each moment. The man who walks alone knows that he does not need to be anywhere other than where he is. He is already exactly where he needs to be, and in that realization he finds peace. The man who walks alone slowly begins to realize that his journey is not just about external movement. It is about internal growth. Each step taken is an act of discovery, not just of the world, but of himself. He is walking through the layers of his own consciousness, peeling them back one by one to reveal the raw, unfiltered truth of who he is. The journey is not linear. It does not follow a set path, nor is it bound by the expectations of others. It is a journey of freedom of expression and of truth. In this quiet space of solitude, the man begins to observe the complexities of his mind. He sees the patterns of thought that he has lived with for so long, the beliefs and ideas that have shaped his perceptions of himself and the world. As he walks, he watches these thoughts come and go, recognizing that they are not him, they are transient, fleeting. And yet, for most of his life, he has been ruled by them. He has allowed these thoughts to dictate his actions, to define his sense of identity. But now, in the silence of his walk, he begins to realize that he has the power to observe these thoughts without attachment. They no longer have to hold dominion over him. This realization does not come easily. It is a process, a slow unraveling of the layers that have concealed his true self. But with each step, with each breath, he feels himself getting closer to something deeper, something more authentic. It is as if he is shedding the skin of who he thought he was, and with each shed layer, a more luminous version of himself begins to emerge. The man who walks alone discovers that the truth of who he is not something that can be found by looking outward, but by looking within. It is not a discovery that can be made through achievement or accumulation. It is found in the stillness, in the silence, in the deep listening to the pulse of his own heart. In walking alone, the man also comes to understand that he does not need to have everything figured out. Life is not something that needs to be solved or understood in its entirety. It is not a puzzle to be completed. The questions, the uncertainties, the challenges, they are all part of the experience. And in embracing them, the man learns to surrender to the flow of life. He no longer feels the need to control every aspect of his journey. Instead, he allows the path to unfold naturally, trusting that each step he takes is guided by something greater than himself. The world has its own rhythm, its own wisdom, and when the man walks alone, he is walking in harmony with it. He is no longer fighting against the current, but rather flowing with it. There is also a deep sense of connection that comes with walking alone. At first, solitude may seem like isolation. But the man who walks alone comes to realize that solitude is not the absence of connection, rather. It is the presence of a deeper connection to the world. He becomes acutely aware of the way everything is interconnected, the way the trees grow toward the sky, the way the river flows through the land, the way the animals move through their daily rhythms. He begins to see himself not as separate from the world, but as an integral part of it. The boundaries between him and everything else begin to blur. He is not apart from nature, he is part of it. The earth beneath his feet is not just ground, it is alive, breathing, and sustaining him. The man who walks alone also comes to understand the importance of simplicity. In the stillness of his walk, the world becomes less cluttered, less complicated. He notices how the most profound experiences are often the simplest ones: a bird flying overhead, a cloud passing by, the feeling of the wind against his skin. It is in these simple moments that he finds the richness of life. The complexities that once seemed so important fade away. He no longer feels the need to seek fulfillment in material things, in possessions, in achievements. He realizes that the richness of life lies in its simplicity, in the ability to be present with what is right in front of him. This simplicity is not about deprivation or renunciation, but about focusing on what truly matters. The man who walks alone learns to strip away the distractions, the excess, and the noise that have clouded his perception of what is important. He sees that the pursuit of wealth, status, or power does not lead to true happiness. These things are temporary, fleeting. True fulfillment comes from within, from the ability to be at peace with oneself, to find joy in the present moment, and to connect deeply with the world around him. The man who walks alone knows that happiness is not something that can be sought externally, but something that is cultivated internally. As he continues on his journey, the man learns to trust his intuition. In the stillness, he becomes more attuned to his inner voice, to the subtle whispers of his heart. He learns to distinguish between the noise of the mind and the quiet guidance of his intuition. The mind is often filled with chatter thoughts of what he should do, of what others think, of what society expects. But the intuition is different. It is quiet, still, and rooted in the wisdom of the heart. The man who walks alone learns to listen to this voice, to trust it, and to follow its guidance. It is not always easy, but with each step he grows more confident in his ability to navigate the world through his own inner knowing. There is also a sense of awe that arises as the man walks alone. As he walks through the world, he begins to see it with fresh eyes. He notices the beauty in the smallest things, the way the light catches the leaves, the intricate patterns in the bark of a tree, the sound of the wind rustling through the grass. It is as if the world has been waiting for him to slow down, to pay attention. And now that he has, it reveals itself in all its glory. The man who walks alone is not blind to the suffering that exists in the world, but he understands that beauty is also present, and it is often found in the most unexpected places. He learns to see the world not as something to be fixed or changed, but as something to be appreciated, to be honored in its natural state. The man also comes to recognize the impermanence of all things. In walking alone, he becomes acutely aware of the fleeting nature of life. The seasons change, the leaves fall, the flowers bloom and wither. Life is in constant motion, in constant flux. And yet, this impermanence does not bring despair. Instead, it brings a deep sense of appreciation for the present moment. The man who walks alone knows that everything is temporary, that even the most difficult times will eventually pass and the most joyful moments will fade. And so he learns to savor each moment, to be fully present with whatever is happening, knowing that it will not last forever. He learns to let go of the need to hold on to things, to cling to the past, or to try to control the future. The man who walks alone understands that life is not about holding on, it is about letting go and trusting in the natural flow of things. This awareness of impermanence also leads to a deeper sense of empathy. The man who walks alone understands that everyone is on their own journey, that everyone is facing their own struggles, their own uncertainties. He learns to approach others with compassion, knowing that just as he has his own challenges, so too do they. The man who walks alone does not judge or condemn. Instead, he meets others where they are, offering kindness and understanding. He knows that, like him, others are seeking meaning, seeking truth, seeking peace. And in this shared experience, there is a deep connection. As he walks, the man also comes to understand the importance of balance. In a world that often emphasizes extreme success or failure, pleasure or pain, right or wrong, the man who walks alone learns the value of balance. He sees that life is not about striving for one thing at the expense of another, but about finding harmony between the various aspects of existence. There is a balance between action and rest, between giving and receiving, between doing and being. The man who walks alone learns to walk the middle path, to find equilibrium in the face of life's challenges. He does not swing from one extreme to the other, but finds a steady rhythm, a calmness that comes from embracing both sides of life, the light and the dark, the joy and the sorrow, the success and the failure. Through all of this, the man who walks alone becomes more at peace with himself and the world. He has learned to accept the ebb and flow of life, to trust in the process, and to be present with each step. He no longer feels the need to prove himself, to seek approval, or to chase after external validation. He understands that true peace comes from within, from being fully aligned with the natural rhythm of life. And as he walks with a sense of quiet joy, knowing that the journey itself is the destination, and that every step, every breath, every moment is a gift. The man who walks alone begins to understand the subtle power of his own presence. There is something profound about the way he moves through the world, unhurried, unshaken, in harmony with the natural rhythms that surround him. He realizes that he is not merely a passive observer in this world, but an active participant in its unfolding. Each footstep he takes, each breath he draws, is a reminder that he is part of something much greater than himself. There is a connection that transcends the boundaries of the self, a connection that binds him to the earth, to the sky, to the stars, to all life. This understanding does not come in grand revelations or sudden insights, but in the quiet moments between breaths, between thoughts, when he is simply present with what is. He walks alone, and yet he is not isolated. The more deeply he immerses himself in the present moment, the more he begins to realize that the idea of separation is illusory. He is not separate from the world, nor from those around him. The sense of isolation is merely a construct of the mind. When the man walks alone, he experiences the interconnectedness of all things. He is no longer a lone individual struggling against the world, but a being in harmony with it. The trees, the rocks, the animals, the sky, they are not separate from him, but part of him. He is a living, breathing manifestation of the same energy that flows through everything. He feels the pulse of life in his own body, and in the bodies of all things. This deep sense of unity is not something that can be intellectualized or understood through thought alone. It is an experience, a way of being in the world. The man who walks alone begins to see the beauty of this interconnectedness in everything he encounters. The way the wind rustles through the leaves, the way the clouds form and dissipate, the way the river flows, he begins to understand that these are not just phenomena to be observed from a distance, but expressions of the same life force that flows through him. The universe is not an external thing to be conquered or controlled, but a living, breathing entity to be experienced and embraced. He is part of it, and it is part of him. There is a profound stillness that arises in the man who walks alone. It is not a stillness born of avoidance, but one that arises from deep acceptance. He accepts the world as it is, without the need to change it or make it fit into his own image. This acceptance brings peace. It frees him from the constant tug of war with life, the battle between what is and what he wants it to be. When the man walks alone, he does not impose his own will on the world, but rather surrenders to it, allowing it to unfold as it will. This surrender is not a passive resignation, but a deep trust in the wisdom of life itself. He understands that everything that happens is part of the natural flow of the universe, and that even in the midst of challenges or difficulties, there is something valuable to be learned. The man who walks alone also comes to understand the fluid nature of identity. For so much of his life he has been caught up in labels: who he is, what he does, what he has achieved. These labels have shaped his sense of self, but now as he walks alone he begins to see that they are not his true essence. His true self is not defined by his accomplishments, his social status, or the roles he plays in society. His true self is the awareness that witnesses all of these things, the unchanging presence that observes the ebb and flow of life without attachment. As he continues his walk, he becomes more and more aware that the self he has identified with for so long is not the entirety of who he is. It is just one facet of a much larger, ever-changing reality. This realization brings freedom. The man who walks alone no longer feels the need to cling to an identity. He is no longer trying to prove himself to be something or someone he is not. He simply is. In this space of non-attachment, he finds a profound sense of peace. He no longer needs to defend his beliefs or protect his ego. He is comfortable in the knowledge that who he is cannot be defined by the transient labels of the world. He is the vastness of consciousness itself, ever-changing, ever-evolving, and yet always present. There is a quiet joy that accompanies the man who walks alone. It is not the joy of achievement or success, nor is it the joy of accumulation. It is the joy of simply being. It is the joy that arises when one is fully present with the moment, when one is not lost in thoughts of the past or future, but fully immersed in the here and now. The man who walks alone discovers that joy is not something that can be sought or grasped, but something that emerges naturally when one allows oneself to be open to the experience of life. He begins to see that joy is not dependent on external circumstances, but on one's internal state of being. When he is at peace with himself and with the world, joy arises effortlessly. He also begins to see the futility of seeking happiness outside of himself. For so long he has sought happiness in achievements, in possessions, in the approval of others. But in walking alone, he realizes that these things are fleeting. Happiness that is dependent on external circumstances is always temporary, always subject to change. The happiness that comes from within, however, is unshakable. It is not dependent on anything outside of oneself. It is the joy of being alive, of being fully engaged with life as it is, of embracing the present moment without clinging to it. The man who walks alone also begins to see that life is not something to be figured out or solved. It is not a puzzle with a clear answer. Life is a mystery, a vast, unfolding experience that cannot be reduced to simple explanations or solutions. The more he walks, the more he becomes comfortable with the unknown. He no longer feels the need to control or predict what will happen. Instead, he allows life to reveal itself, trusting that whatever comes is part of the larger design. There is a deep peace that comes with surrendering to the mystery of life. The man who walks alone does not fear uncertainty, because he knows that uncertainty is where life's greatest beauty and wisdom reside. As he walks, the man also begins to see the impermanence of all things. The world is in a constant state of change. People come and go, seasons change, the landscape shifts, there is nothing that remains the same forever. And yet the man who walks alone does not mourn this impermanence. He embraces it. He understands that the beauty of life lies in its fleeting nature. If things lasted forever, they would lose their value. It is the transience of life that makes it precious. The man who walks alone understands that everything he encounters, every person, every experience, every moment is temporary, and in that temporary nature there is something sacred. In walking alone, the man also comes to understand that life is not something to be understood in its entirety. He does not need to have all the answers, nor does he need to have a clear vision of the future. Life is not something to be figured out, but something to be experienced. The man who walks alone begins to see that each moment, each step is a gift. It does not need to lead to anything or result in anything. It is enough in itself. In this realization, he finds a deep sense of fulfillment. He no longer feels the pressure to achieve or accumulate, because he understands that life is not about reaching a destination, but about fully experiencing the journey. As he continues his walk, the man who walks alone begins to realize that he has found something much deeper than he could have ever imagined. He has found a peace that is not dependent on the outside world, but on his own acceptance of what is. He has found a freedom that comes not from escaping the world, but from embracing it as it is. He has found a joy that comes not from pursuing external desires, but from being fully present with the experience of life itself. The man who walks alone has found the truth of who he is, and in this truth he has found a peace that is unshakable, a joy that is unending, and a freedom that is boundless. The man who walks alone discovers, in the quiet solitude of his journey, that the true essence of life is not found in the external world, in what we achieve, or in the approval of others, but in the depth of our own being. He learns that happiness is not something to be chased, but something that arises naturally when we are present with ourselves and the world around us. It is in letting go of the need to control, to define, or to possess that we find the peace and freedom we seek. The man who walks alone understands that life, in all its mystery and impermanence, is not something to be solved, but something to be experienced. The journey is the destination, and in embracing each moment with open-hearted awareness, we find the true meaning of life. The strongest message that emerges from the man's walk is this: the answers to our deepest questions are not out there somewhere, waiting to be found. They are within us, in the quiet space where we can listen, observe, and simply be. In walking alone, we do not find isolation, but a profound connection to the world and to ourselves. The freedom, peace, and joy we seek are not somewhere else, they are here, now, in the present moment. And when we are willing to walk our own path, to trust in the flow of life, we realize that we are never truly alone, because we are always connected to the very essence of existence itself.